What's up? My name's Tylan. Are you mystified by MATLAB? I know I was. Or were you, Ryan?
Yeah, MATLAB's pain in the beat to use because as engineers, we're engineering students, you're forced to use MATLAB everywhere. Of course, you need to use MATLAB for math, and then you have engineering, and then when you build a tiny Lego robot, still supposed to use MATLAB to program it. I see students go here crazy trying to do something in MATLAB. They have used something over their years.
But we're here to keep you from going crazy. So today we're going to talk about how to plot in MATLAB.
And we show you step by step on the screen how to use MATLAB. Stay with us, stay tuned.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I call you up.
Alright, now that we're back, let's take a look at the agenda for today. Today we're going to go over a few commands. First, the plot command, which plots data points using X and Y arrays. Then there's the title, X label, Y label, and legend commands, which are pretty self-explanatory. Then, so here's an example of some linear plots. Now, there's the fplot command, which plots symbolic functions, and you can also specify the domain with the minimum and maximum x value. And there's also the polar command, which can plot explicit polar functions such as this. Then there's the easy plot and easy polar functions commands, which can plot implicit functions and explicit polar functions respectively. Also, the axis command will modify the graph's viewpoint. Alright, this is Tylan. We're going to start with some basic plotting of data points. First, we start with defining our x and y values here in the first couple lines. Then we call the function plot of x comma y. So it plots this line interpolating the data points, but the data points themselves are not displayed. So here we double plot the x and y both. The first one has k minus for a black line, and then the second time RO for red objects, red data points, as you can see here. Now, if we want to plot two lines on the same graph, two sets of data points, now we're defining y2 for our second set using the same x for the same domain. Now, to display the line and data points for both of the lines, that's two plottings for each one. So here we have b minus for x and y2 for a black line, and we used GO for green objects to have green data points, as it's shown here. Now, if we want to add a title and label the x and y axes and a legend, we start here with the title command, and then within the string you type the title. In this case, this is the title. Then we move it on to x label, same thing, y label, which labels the y-axis, and then legend. First we define the first trend line, then the first data points, and then second trend line and second data points in the same order that we used in the plot function above. So as you can see here, our legend is there, our title, X and Y axis are labeled, and now all is good. Alright, now instead of using data points to graph, now we can actually use a function. So first we define our domain using the linspace command. So X now goes from -20 to +20, and then we define Y equals to X1 squared. We use the dot exponential operator because X1 is an array, so we want each element to be squared. Now we use the plot command again using X1 and Y, and it will graph Y as a function of X1 instead of individual data points. As shown here. So this makes it much easier instead of defining arrays to plot anything. But still, defining so many arrays it can be a big pain and might make you want to smash your computer like I do.
So to prevent this from happening, we have a few tricks up our sleeve. Just stay tuned. Hello, this is Ivan here, and let's go over a few examples of polar plotting. I'm sure you're all familiar with Newton's system of polar coordinates. The first example will be a line, and then we'll plot a circle. Please notice the way I've set up the data points. The only new function here should be ones of xy. Ones of xy creates x rows and y columns filled with ones. This is especially helpful when you want to create a linear array or a matrix of constant values. Let's see how that works now. Ones of 3, 4 should create 3 rows and 4 columns filled with ones. I'm using ones here to set the angle to be constant because we want to create a line. The radius values will change from 0 to 4. Let's see what that looks like. See, we have created a line that remains at a constant pi/3 angle with the horizontal, while the distance from the origin varies. Now let's go into the circle. For the circle, the angle values will change from 0 to 2 pi, while the radius remains constant at 2. Let's go ahead and plot that. See, the blue line shows the circle and it has a constant radius of 2, while the angle each point makes varies. Now let's go ahead and plot a special graph. This graph is called a cardioid because it resembles a heart shape when you graph it, and the formula for it is r equals 1 minus cos of theta. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Oops, yeah, there we go. So notice the heart shape. You should remember this cardioid because we will be seeing it later when we get to easy polar. So that's it for now. Let's move on to, what is it, fplot? Yeah, let's move on to fplot now. The first command we'll use is fplot. Notice the syntax for fplot. It's fplot, explicit function in single quotes followed by the range for the variables. In this function we'll be first plotting a cubic. Notice grid on and the axis square. Axis square just sets your graph to have square boundaries. So let's go ahead and plot the first cubic and see what that looks like. This is a typical cubic. Passes through x equals 0, y equals 0. Now let's go and see multiple plots on the same graph using fplot. Please notice how I have set up the function. Here I'm passing two functions as an array in single quotes. We are plotting sine of x and cos of x both from -2 pi to 2 pi. Also I have put legend and title. As you can see, it's a pretty good graph in very few commands. So take a look at the code if you need to understand that. Sin of x and cos of x were passed as arrays separated by commas, and please be careful that you type in the function you want correctly or MATLAB will throw a fit. So that's it for fplot. Hello, welcome back. Let's get back to the plotting and the last command for today. This command is called easyplot and it's one of my favorite commands because it's very easy to use. Do you remember the circle that we plotted before using 3 or 4 lines of code and linspace and stuff? Well, you can plot that exact same circle in one sentence, and this is how it's done. There you go. Well, you see the y-axis and the x-axis and the titles were all automatically done for you. You just had to type in one line. You can actually plot the same circle in a parametric form if you want, and that should look like this. See, it's the same circle except those functions were passed as parametric functions. And now finally let's look at easy polar. Do you remember the cardioid that I asked you to remember? Well, you can plot the same cardioid in one line using easy polar, and that should look like this. Even now the graph is labeled and you get the same function but in a much shorter way. So that's it for plotting today. Thank you for watching the video.
And fuck the whole universe.